Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The chapter 4 Yogas. We are currently studying the topic Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge. So we start with the study. Jnana Yoga, path of knowledge. Jnanam means knowledge, and Jnana Yoga is the path of knowledge designed for persons in the intellectual category. It is meant for those who inquire into the mystery of life and the world. Who am I? How did this world come about? What is the origin of beings? Who is God? The path of knowledge finds answers to these questions. Jnana Yoga is not mere erudition or scholarship in religious literature, not cramming spiritual knowledge from textbooks, precepts, and preceptors. True knowledge arises out of an internal discipline of reflection and contemplation on the eternal truths. Scriptures and sermons would play a vital role in your spiritual development, provided you think originally on the subject, reflect upon the truths therein you assimilate, absorb them. As you absorb the knowledge, you apply it practically in all walks of life. You begin to question what is permanent and impermanent in life, what is eternal and ephemeral. Distinguish the real from the unreal. This discipline has been brought out by one potent advice by the poet philosopher Shankaracharya, Nitya Anitya Viveka Vichara, which means reflecting on the distinction between the eternal and the ephemeral. You must therefore examine what is unchanging in the changing phenomena of the world, what remains constant in the inconstant factors of life. Observe your own life's journey, how it passes through various facets from childhood through old age. Your personality is in a constant flux of change, never static. Yet, you point to yourself and say, this is me, this height, weight, this name, fame is me. Little realizing that the moment you point your finger at yourself, you have already changed. There can be no fixation of your personality. Nevertheless, you go on declaring, I am a child, I am a boy, I am a man, I am an old man. The personality moves on, but the I remains constant. The same I assumes three distinct states of consciousness, as a waker, dreamer, and deep sleeper. These are three distinct personalities. But you declare, I am the person in the waking state, I am the person in the dream, I am the person in sleep. That I, the constant factor which runs through the three states, is the Supreme Self. The path of knowledge helps you to develop the awareness of that one reality in the kaleidoscopic patterns of life. Recognize the unity in diversity, the one self pulsating in every facet of life. You must develop an awareness of the divinity that pervades everywhere. Make good use of scriptural study and reflection to probe into the self that you are. Keep your thoughts in your divine center while you function in the world. Never let yourself slip out of yourself. Just as fishes live in the medium of water, birds in the medium of air, so do you live in the medium of the divine consciousness. That consciousness is your real self. Remember, you are the self at all times. Revel in yourself. You will soon rise above your worldly attachment and entanglement and reach the state of self-realization. In actual practice, you must make sure that you study the scripture daily. You derive the best result if you do so in the sattvic time between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. Reflect upon what you study. Contemplate on the truths therein. Apply them in your life. Be consistent in your effort. The results of your endeavor show up gradually. You need to exercise a great deal of patience and perseverance before you become established in the eternal being that you are. Most people lack this discipline of studying the scripture or listening to spiritual discourses. They seek instant ways and means to self-realization, and they believe that by directly plunging into meditation, they could attain enlightenment. Such people are far removed from divinity. Their intellect is obscured by a cloud of ignorance, and the mind infested with desires, whereas the pursuit of knowledge frees your mind of its desires, clears the cloud of ignorance. Your intellect begins to distinguish the eternal from the ephemeral, and you perceive the play of divinity in all walks of life. This is far more power in your disciplined way of living than in most men in their assumed state of meditation. The Bhagavad Gita in the 13th chapter, verses 8 to 12, gives out 20 qualities that define the path of knowledge. They are virtues that go with the person endowed with spiritual knowledge. For a detailed study of those qualities, you may go through the author's commentary on the Gita. For your ready reference, they are enumerated below: humility, unpretentiousness, harmlessness, forgiveness, uprightness, service to preceptor, purity, steadfastness, self-control, dispassion towards the sense objects, absence of egoism, insight into the pain and evil of birth, disease, old age, disease, non-attachment, free from infatuation to son, wife, home, etc., constant balance of mind in desirable or undesirable happenings, unflinching devotion to self through steadfast yoga, resorting to solitary place, disinterest in gathering, constancy in self-knowledge, perception of the end of true knowledge. A seeker must develop these 20 qualities to ensure his advancement in the path of knowledge. This is Jnana Yoga. Jnanam is, the translation of the word Jnanam is knowledge. Jnana Yoga is the path of inquiry designed for those who are intellectuals. All are thinking. Who is the human being who's not thinking? All human being thinks, reason, analyzes. So it looks like all are using their intellect. So how do we define Jnana Yoga? The path of knowledge is for those who are predominantly intellectuals. First thing is, the very inquiry is about the word knowledge itself. The first inquiry. See, most of us don't inquire into the nature of knowledge, you know. We all assume that there is knowledge and we have to gain knowledge. We keep moving. Intellectual is one who asks this question: what is? Jnana means knowledge. Okay, what is Jnana? What is knowledge? And then there are various definitions of the word. Once you go into that, I'm not getting into that discussion. Huh? If we get into that discussion, it's a totally different subject altogether. But it is very relevant to understand in this context. Intellectual are those who are concerned about the very nature of knowledge. Most of us are concerned about the utility of knowledge. He is not concerned about the utility of knowledge. He is concerned about the nature of what knowledge is. How would you define knowledge? It's very simple, sir. Knowledge relates to factors or things that are deemed to be true. Where is the difficulty? Knowledge concerns that which is the knowledge concerns that the facts that are deemed to be true is knowledge. Then comes the question, what is the truth? What is the truth? Can there be anything called as the truth itself? Bhakti Yoga seems to be better than this, sir. So we all will go back to. So we'll go to Bhakti Yoga. That is where we always say the Jnanam la. We should not get into all this because it is very, very. Even we be living with some clarity of life, you come and unnecessarily you come and confuse us. Of course, we know knowledge means this. Knowledge of physics, chemistry, science, mathematics, philosophy, history, geography. Where is what is your problem? Why do you have to unnecessarily confuse? It is meant for those who are basically inquiry by nature. And predominantly human beings are not inquiry by nature. Predominantly human beings do not inquire. The general tendency is to take things for granted on an authority. The general tendency is to take things for granted because somebody so and so has said it. That's all. So what is Jnana Yoga? The path of knowledge designed for persons in the intellectual category. And what is intellectual category means? A person who is in the constant mode of inquiry. A predominantly active person will say, idella waste of time. What has happened? Has anything happened because of this constant talk? Is there anything that has happened out of all this talk? At some point of time, just close it and get back to. Stop all this talk, get up and do something. For doing is far more productive than simply inquiring, discussing, analyzing, inquiring, discussing, analyzing. So Jnana Yoga is designed to the minority, predominantly the minority who belongs to the intellectual class. And who is intellectual class? Examples are given. The question, who am I? Even if you are told to ask who am I, the question will not come, who am I? Even if you are told, ask this question, who am I? Ask this question, who am I? They mechanically ask, who am I? Deep down, they know they are that. Deep down, there is no fundamental doubt about, see, who am I question can come only if you have a fundamental doubt. And there are these people who keep asking, who am I, who am I, who am I, without having any doubt whatsoever. Now, who is an intellectual category? The intellectual category is one who is confused about the nature of oneself. So he asked, who? He asks this question, who am I? And if you look at the society, most of the human beings have no confusion about themselves. They may be confused about so many other things, but they have no confusion about themselves. Now, if you have no doubt or confusion about your own self, from where will you ask this question? From where will this question arise? Who am I? So, the intellectual category is asking this question, who? Who am I? How did this world come about? How did this world come about? The origin is mysterious. The origin is mysterious. When did this world come? Big Bang. 5 billion years ago, Big Bang happened and this world came. Correct. Intellectual category of person says, what was there before that? What caused the Big Bang? Why 5 billion years ago? That doesn't answer any. The question that it happened 5 billion years ago doesn't answer any question. So the question continues to remain the same. So what is this question? How did this world come about? One is they themselves are a mystery to themselves. Therefore, they ask this question, who? Who am I? The world outside is mysterious. And then comes the most wonderful thing. Who is God? Who is God? You can ask who is God, or you can ask what is God, or you can ask where is God. It doesn't matter, but all questions concerning God. For the layperson, all these are, the answers are so obvious that there is no need to question. How to fulfill the desire and a question we will ask. How to become rich in a question we will ask. How to make sure that hospital bills I will not. How to avoid the hospital bills, that question I will ask. Clear. Taxation question I will. How to avoid taxation. These are all intelligent questions we will ask. But we are not interested in this question about who. Who am I? How did this world come about? What is God? In the unnecessary waste of time questions, you keep to yourself. These questions concern Jnana Yoga. These are the questions that is concerning Jnana Yoga. And the scriptures gives an answers to these questions. So Jnana Yoga is the study of the scriptures. Jnana Yoga is the study of the scriptures, seeking answers to these questions. But you can study scripture not as an answer for these questions. You can study scriptures even for other reasons also. You can study scriptures. Like management, business management principles from Bhagavad Gita. You can study Bhagavad Gita for that also. I'm not saying you should not read. Please, whatever you want to read, that is your thing. Business management techniques from Bhagavad Gita. How to make profit from study of Bhagavad Gita. So, there are very many reasons for which you study the scripture. Merely studying the scripture is not Jnana Yoga. First thing that you got to understand this is, just because you are merely studying a scripture, it doesn't make it Jnana Yoga. The purpose for which you are studying the scripture alone makes it Jnana Yoga. And what is the purpose for which you study the scripture? You have these questions. You have these questions. What are these questions? Who am I? What is God? What is the nature of? What is the origin of the world? These questions are there, and you seek answers to these questions, and scriptures answers this, this question. So you study the Shastra, you study the scripture to get an answer to these questions. Then it is called, the study of the scriptures is called Jnana Yoga. Are you able to follow? Okay, sir, all these questions and all I will come later. Right now, I have so many problems to worry about. Yeah. So many problems to worry about. If I come out of my house, entering into the lift, there is a fear. I may catch COVID, because I do not know what are all the buttons there. I do not know who's touched the button, where, who's coming, who's not coming, we don't know. So let us worry about these practical issues of life. Then we will come to this who am I? We'll come to all this later. Why bother us with these questions? Jnana Yoga is the study of the Shastras, seeking answers to these questions. So you have to be very clear in understanding the definition of Jnana Yoga. And people misunderstand, who are all studying the scriptures, they are following Jnana Yoga. Just as who are all going to the temples, they think they are following Bhakti Yoga. No. All those who are going to the temples are not practicing Bhakti Yoga. Similarly, all those who are studying the Shastras are not practicing Jnana Yoga. It's very clear. All those who are going to temples are not practicing Bhakti Yoga. Similarly, all those who are studying the Shastras, attending these classes regularly, do not fall under the category of Jnana Yoga. Why? Because Jnana Yoga is the study of the Shastras, seeking answers to these questions. Are you okay till now? Why the study of the Shastras? To get an answer to these questions. Because only Shastra can answer these questions. For no other subject inquires into this. No other subject inquires into this. Therefore, if you want answers to this question, you should come to the relevant knowledge. You can't say, I want to become a doctor and go to engineering college. If you want to become a doctor, you have to study that particular, that relevant subject you need to study. So if you want an answer to these questions, we say studying the scriptures, the Shastra, studying Vedanta. Why Vedanta? Why not get an answer to this from? There are people who will ask, why are we so fanatic to this Vedanta, sir? Why can't we be liberal? If we don't study Vedanta, don't we get answers to these questions? A few may have gotten it, but those few are not the rules, for which the logic is, wherever there is a rule, there will be an exception to the rule. All rules comes with, when you make a rule, the very fact that you make a rule comes with, at least this much you are able to appreciate. No. Wherever there is a rule, there will be an, if there is a law, if there is a rule, there will be an exception to the rule. So there may be a very few who may have studied it without knowing the word Vedanta. That doesn't mean the vast majority can find answer to these questions without Vedanta. Therefore, what is Jnana Yoga? Trying to seek answers to these questions through Vedanta Shastra is Jnana Yoga. Why Vedanta Shastra? Because Their subject matter of inquiry is these questions. That is why it's called a pramanam. For knowledge requires a pramanam. Knowledge requires a pramanam. Then only it becomes knowledge. So what is the pramanam for? Questions are there, but what is the pramanam to answer these questions? One person will come and say, the unnecessary question. Don't waste your time asking these questions. There is world, enjoy the world. Is that an answer to this question? The question still remains the same. Are you able to follow? Therefore, here is the knowledge, and knowledge means it is a pramanam, and therefore, study of Vedanta, seeking answer to these questions is Jnana Yoga. Definition. First is definition. And then what is Jnana Yoga? We'll come to that later. Definition of Jnana Yoga. What is Jnana Yoga? Who is the practitioner of Jnana Yoga? Practitioner of Jnana Yoga, very simple, 20 qualities. Adala onnu problem e kediyadu. Practitioner of Jnana Yoga, 20 qualities. Chapter 13, verses 8 to 12. Amanitvam, adambitvam, ahimsa, kshantirarjavam, all that he starts. So that is very straightforward. So the two questions that we are discussing here is, what is Jnana Yoga? Second is, why Vedanta Shastra is the pramanam for Jnana Yoga, and what is it that we actually study in Jnana Yoga. So first I am trying to explain what is Jnanam and how Vedanta becomes the exclusive authority to answer these questions. And when Vedanta answers this question, it follows a pattern of logic, reason, analysis, etc., etc., etc. Therefore, this is the definition of Jnana Yoga. The misunderstanding about Jnana Yoga is mere erudition and scholarship in religious literature. The misunderstanding of Jnana Yoga. What is the misunderstanding of Jnana Yoga? A person who has erudition and scholarship in a religious literature, scripture, need not be practitioner of Jnana Yoga. Not cramming spiritual knowledge from textbooks, precepts, and preceptors. People ask, sir, why are we doing the same book again and again and again? There are so many people who are doing so many books. Since you are not talking about Bhagavatam, and I want to study Bhagavatam, I go and study it. Since you don't do this Viveka Chudamani, to study Viveka Chudamani, since you don't talk about Bible at all, I go to, since you don't talk about Quran at all, I study. This is cramming textbooks, precepts and preceptors. Just cramming. Seeking more and more and more information. That's all. The greed for information. More and more and more knowing. For what? That and all don't ask. We should know. 8 to 8:30 one news channel. 8:30 to 9 another news channel. 9 to 9:30 another news channel. What is the breaking news? What is the breaking news? What will be the breaking news? Every day, how can there be a breaking news every day? Yeah, if there is a breaking news every day, we are in a mad world, isn't it? In an organized world, breaking news will come very rarely. You will not get breaking news every day. Every few hours, headlines. What is the headlines now? What is irrelevance? Nothing. There is nothing that is mere cramming of information and mere cramming of scriptural literature doesn't make you a practitioner of Jnana Yoga. Then what is Jnana Yoga? An internal discipline of reflection and contemplation. What in part A we dealt in detail as Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. When we were discussing the part A, we studied these three: Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. There we spent a considerable time studying what is Shravana, what is Manana, what is Nididhyasana. Recollect all that. So what is Jnana Yoga? Jnana Yoga is an internal discipline of reflection and contemplation. Reflection upon the truths until you assimilate and absorb. To whatever extent you have absorbed, that you would be practically following it in your life. Carefully follow. Absorption followed by practice. It is not practice followed by absorption. That's why people come and listen from they listen for 1 hour and straight away they want to go on practice everything. How to practice, how to practice, how to practice. They are in such a hurry to practice. They can't even wait for the analysis to get complete. Okay, sir, analysis you keep all your analysis. How to practice? How to practice? It means there is lacking this internal discipline. For a Jnana Yogi doesn't have an urgency to practice. Jnana Yogi is interested in Shravana and Manana. Shravana and Manana. Upon what does he do Shravana and Manana? Nitya, Anitya, Viveka, Vicharam. Upon what he does the Shravana and Manana? Nitya, Anitya, Viveka, Vichara. Essentials, non-essentials. Permanent, impermanent. Real, unreal. Eternal, ephemeral. This is Manana. This is Manana. Distinguishing the essentials and non-essentials. Differentiating between the essential and the non-essential. Differentiating between the real and the unreal. Differentiating between the eternal and the ephemeral. Differentiating between the permanent and impermanent. This enquiry is called Nitya, Anitya, Viveka, Vicharam. Practicing this is practicing Jnana Yoga. So, what is the practice of Jnana Yoga? A constant awareness, a constant inquiry, a constant awareness about real, unreal, a constant awareness about essential and non-essential, a constant awareness about ephemeral, about real and unreal. A sample of Jnana Yoga of this analysis is given. A sample of the analysis is given. What is the sample of that analysis? the fundamental analysis. You take this formula and you can apply it everywhere. What is it? The I. The I. Yo, sir, Vanand, don't start with your I story. Now we have heard this. We have heard this any number of times. We know this I. Please go to the 20 qualities. For this I, we have heard it. We have heard it any number of times. The moment you start, the I nale, eyes are closing. Yeah. You start with the I, my eyes. My eyes are just, yeah. It goes into meditative state. The moment you start with the I, my eyes goes into meditative state. What is this Jnana Yoga? The inquiry into the I. Who? We saw the question, no? Who? Who am I? Who am I? The I that remains constant throughout your life. You can do this Jnana Yoga Vicharam by inquiry about the microcosm or the inquiry about the macrocosm. Here the sample given is in relation to the microcosm. Same thing you can ask about the same question you can ask about the macrocosm also. That's where we started by saying who am I is in relation to the microcosm. The origin of the world, nature of the world and all is about the macrocosm. And then beyond this microcosm and macrocosm lies the third entity called God. The question about that is also what is God? So he has just taken, he didn't go into all the three because the entire book Vedanta treatise is about all the three. Therefore, he is not going into the details of all the three. Why? Because from page number 1 to last, from the first word to the last word in this book, it's all about these three inquiry only. The inquiry of the I, the inquiry about the microcosm, the inquiry about the macrocosm, the inquiry about what is God. What is God? Consciousness is God. What is world? Expressions of what is world? Various expressions of God. Who am I? Who am I? God, consciousness. So consciousness, consciousness, consciousness. Who am I? Answer is consciousness. What is world? Answer is மூணு क्वेश्चनக்கு மூணு ஆன்சர் கிடையாது. Question is 3. Answer is 1. அது எப்படி சார்? You ask so many questions and say உங்களுக்கு பதில் தெரியலன்னு வேணா சொல்லுங்க. How can you say for all the questions there is only one answer? Who am I? Consciousness. What is the world? Consciousness. What is God? Consciousness. This is Jnana Yoga. This is Jnana Yoga. And the ideal of Jnana Yoga is moksha, liberation. The ideal of Jnana Yoga is moksha. Even though we loosely say Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga is also for liberation, in fact, Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga combined prepares you to, makes you mature to receive this knowledge, and this knowledge gets you the liberation. This is the sequence. Even though in a very loose way we say Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, all that. So Karma and Bhakti is a preparation to makes you an adhikari to receive knowledge. Why you have to prepare yourself and come? You need preparation because the mind is not focusing here. The mind is not attentive here. It is running. The mind is not at all attentive here. It is running all over the place. That is an impure mind. So Karma Yoga, by practicing Karma Yoga, you purify the mind, and that purified mind is available for this inquiry. So Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga is purifications. And Jnana Yoga is moksha. Sakshan mokshaika sadhanam pakasya vakni vajnanam vina moksho na siddhyati. We have studied that already for the recent time. Therefore, that's why when I saw Jnana Yoga, I just finished the whole reading, and in one session we can finish this whole chapter of Jnana Yoga, because we are just currently studying it in the other sessions also. So we need to connect with all that we study in the other sessions about this Jnana. So Jnana Yoga is that which talks about moksha, liberation, and people get so tempted by moksha, so tempted by the idea of liberation, and they want shortcuts. And there are any number of people to give you shortcuts. See? We don't understand. Ignorance is the fundamental problem. See, purified mind, Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga purifies you to understand that ignorance is the fundamental problem. Ajnanam is the fundamental problem. The superimposition is the fundamental problem. We don't understand that. Therefore, we always think that there are very many methods to get rid of. There are very many methods to get rid of ignorance. Of the very many methods, how ignorance can be gotten rid of, one method is Jnanam. The fallacy in this argument is this. There are very many ways to get rid of the darkness in the room, no sir? What are the many ways by which the darkness of the room can be removed? By dancing and singing. One method to remove ignorance is by dancing and singing. Another method is bring the room and sweep the ignorance. Sweep the dirt away, ignorance away. You sing and dance. You breathe in and breathe out. You stand on your head upside down. There are very many methods by which ignorance can be removed. Of the very many methods, one method is Jnanam, and irukkaradhile Jnanam the very slowest method. Jnanam, this is not the only method, sir. Irukkaradhile rombo slow. Yeah. See, there are so many stalwarts sitting in this session, so they all know. Yeah. There are very many stalwarts sitting here. Brilliant gurus are also sitting here. Yeah. There are very many methods, sir. Of the very many, there are some methods which are fast, quick, and irukkaradhile slowest method is Jnanam. Not only Jnanam is the slowest method, you make it more slow. As it is very slow. அதுல நீங்க கொஞ்சம் ஃபாஸ்டா பேசி ஏதாவது if you can do something now, no, that you make it more. Not only it is slow, you make it slowest. I don't know how it goes. There are no shortcuts for moksha. There are no so many paths for moksha. There is only one. What is that? Jnanam. You will understand Jnanam is the only solution when you understand what the problem is. You think mind is the problem. You think mind is not the problem. Of the very many problems, mind is one, but mind is not the problem. If mind is the problem, deep sleep, no mind, perfect solution. Death, where there is no, it becomes so easier if mind is the problem. So what they do, they all say mind is the problem, mind is the problem, mind is the problem. And therefore what? In meditation, what you do? You quieten the mind, you still the mind, you attain moksha, and you are in that enlightened state for a while, and then you come down from that enlightened state and then say, oh bah, sir, inni kaarthala this morning I was in that enlightened state for 45 minutes. Exactly like saying I was in deep sleep. You know, both are not different, because even when you are in deep sleep, you won't know that you are in deep sleep. So even in the peace of meditation, you won't know that you are enjoying the peace of meditation. Only when you come out, you report. At least in the waking state and dream state, you report when? Puriyarda? Shankar? At least in the waking state and dream state, you report when you are there. In deep sleep and meditation, you report that you had a deep sleep. You report that you had a peace of mind. When? After you come out, and then you want to go back to that again. And then the fellow says, don't worry, I have the key, and every day I will give you the key so that you can be in that state for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and there is a gate crash and people follow. And people fall for that. See, even here, I know how many people are falling for all that. It's not that only I'm talking about the people outside. I'm talking about so many in this group itself fall for all this. Fall for all this. Therefore, what is Jnanam? Jnana Yoga is the thing for liberation. Jnana Yoga is the thing for, Jnana Yoga is that which talks about liberation, and Jnana Yoga is the only source of liberation. Some may sing the Jnanam. Some may write books about Jnanam. Some may give short sutras about the Jnanam. But all boils down to, just because somebody is singing a song doesn't make it not Jnanam. It is also Jnanam. Are you able to follow? There are very many ways in which Jnanam expressed, but the fundamental is Jnanam. And who is a Jnani? A Jnani is one who possesses these 20 qualities. If you want to be a meditator, if you want to practice Nididhyasanam, if you want to be a meditator, preliminary qualification for being the meditator is these 20 qualities. Unless you are established in these 20 qualities, you cannot be a meditator. To go into deep sleep state, you don't need to be a meditator. That everybody goes through anyway. And all the meditation that is practiced in the world is very similar to. One is you go to deep sleep by yourself in meditation class. The other induces you to a deep sleep. Either you fall off to sleep by yourself or the Vedanta class is a kind of meditation. Yeah. Vedanta class itself is a kind of meditation only because we all fall off to sleep. If you want to be a meditator, you have to be a master of these 20 qualities. As we saw when we discussed the 35 qualities, we just list out the qualities here, for we will do these qualities in elaboration when we study in the Bhagavad Gita sessions. We will do those qualities in detail, because if we start doing these qualities in detail, 35 qualities mudikarthike 1 year avum, and 20 qualities will take another 1 year. When we will finish the book Vedanta Treatise, before we finish this edition, Swamiji may come up with another revised edition. But we would not have finished the text. Therefore, what we do, we just take these qualities as a ready reference. The characteristic feature of bhakti is no hatred. The characteristic feature of bhakti is no hatred. The characteristic feature of jnanam is humility. In the very first quality itself, it is established very clearly what is that. In the 35 qualities we saw adveshta sarva bhutanam. The first quality itself spoke about hate no being, meaning it's not the number of people you love that matters. How many you hate. Only generally I am a very loving and affectionate person, sir. But when I see somebody doing anything wrong, that I can't tolerate, sir. That I can't stand. Bhakti Yoga says, who are you? Your duty is you should not have any hatred. Irrespective of who the other is, you don't have any hatred is Bhakti Yoga. The practitioner of Bhakti Yoga. Similarly, the practitioner of Jnana Yoga. What is the practitioner of Jnana Yoga? The first quality, amanitvam. Humility. Beautiful is this quality. Humility. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. Subhashitani says, Vidya, knowledge goes with, the proof of knowledge is humility. The proof of knowledge is humility. Humility arises when the intellect recognizes its limitations. When the intellect recognizes its limitations, humility arises. When you recognize your limitations, humility arises. A jnana, the practitioner of Jnana Yoga is one who has recognized one's own limitations. Having recognized one's own limitation, naturally what would follow? Humility would follow. So it's not a false modesty. Yeah, humility is not a false modesty. I'm a very humble person, sir, is the most arrogant statement that you can. The most arrogant statement that you can make is, I am the most. Sir, but you can't find a humble person like me. No, nobody can beat me in humility. Humility is not humility has got nothing to do with prostration. Humility has got nothing to do with how much you know or how much you, it's not all that. What is humility? Humility arises when the intellect recognizes its limitations. The Vedas talk about this. There is a small story in the Vedas. Every 1,000 years, God Yama comes to take the Rishi back. How long? See, if you are born, you have to die. No, one day you have to die. Whether you live for 100 years or 1,000 years, one day you have to die. And Yama said, come, come. 4 times he came. That Rishi asked for extension. Yeah. We ask for extensions, no? 1 more extension, 1 more extension, 6 months extension, 1 year extension, extension of service. Yeah. So he asked for 4 extensions. And Yama went and told Shiva, this man is asking, I don't know what do I do. Shiva said, okay, I'll go and deal with this man. Shiva came down and said, what is your problem? Why are you not coming back? No, I want to study I want to know all the Vedas. He said, okay, come. He took him to the beach. Can you count the number of sand grains? Can you count? It grains, no? Can you count the number of sand grains? Is it possible for a human being to count? And said, no, it is not possible. Even if one person can count the number of sand grains in the ocean, that is also possible, but it is impossible to know. It is impossible to know everything. So don't waste your time trying to know all this. This is called what? This is called humility. So a practitioner of Jnana Yoga has humility followed by all these qualities. Forgiveness. See, more and more intelligent you become less and less unforgiving. You can't forgive. You become more and more cruel because forgiveness. Another beautiful quality. Dispassion toward. I'm not going into the details of all the 20 qualities. A seeker must develop these 20 qualities to ensure his advancement in the path of knowledge. He should advance. Practice this. These qualities are the indicators of his advancement in the path of Jnana Yoga. This is the discussion about Jnana Yoga. Next class we will take up Karma Yoga. Jnana Yoga I just Jnana Yoga is finished. In the next class, we will take up Karma Yoga for our study. And why I did it? Because right now in chapter in chapter 5 we are studying about jnana karma sannyasa, where we are discussing knowledge. Atma bodha, where we are discussing about knowledge. Since we are so much discussing about knowledge in all these three, so I just went through this entire thing of Jnana Yoga in a bit faster way. I'll take up the clarification from Anbhanandan. If everything is consciousness, what is consciousness? Anbhanandan's question. If everything is consciousness, what is consciousness? The question what implies consciousness as an object. When you ask what, you're able to follow the answer. When you ask this question, what is consciousness? The implication behind this question, what is consciousness, is consciousness can be understood as an object. Consciousness cannot be understood as an object. For it is the very subject. So what is consciousness? Before I answer what is consciousness, I am explaining. Whenever we ask this question, what is consciousness? When we ask what implies an object, correct? Are you able to follow? When you ask what is consciousness, the what implies an object. And consciousness can never be understood as an object. Why consciousness can never be understood as an object? Because if something has to be, if you understand something as an object, there is a subject who is understanding that object. And if there is a subject, there is something that is enlivening the subject. If there is a subject and there is something that is enlivening the subject, the very thing that enlivens the subject is consciousness, which the subject cannot know it objectively. What is consciousness? That which lends sentiency to matter is consciousness. Now, I answered it at one level. Now I'm answering the question at another level. At the secondary level, the answer is, what is consciousness? That which enlivens matter, that which lends sentiency to inert, that which makes the jada a jiva is consciousness. That which makes the inert object come to life is consciousness. Just as electricity to the bulb. Just as electricity to the bulb. But even this electricity to the bulb is a very limited comparison. So, what is consciousness? This question can be addressed at two levels. At level A, which is at the elementary level, you say consciousness is that which enlivens everything, and the enlivener can never be the enlivener can never be known as an object. Going deeper, which is what we are supposed to do through these classes, we should go deeper and deeper in thinking. So when we go deeper, how do we go? The moment you ask what is consciousness, you are asking objectify consciousness. You are asking objectify consciousness, for which the question is objectify consciousness. for which we say, Vedanta says, this question itself is a fallacious question because consciousness cannot be objectified. Why? Because the moment there is an object, there has to be a subject. Object cannot exist without the subject, and the subject cannot exist without the object. They both are, they scratch each other's back. This fellow is dependent on that, and that fellow is dependent on this. So when we ask about a subject, one asking this question about an object, it is not possible for the subject to know what is consciousness, because the consciousness is not an object which the subject can understand. Why? Because for every knowledge, you need a corresponding instrument to know it. If you have to know something, you need a corresponding, you need to have a corresponding instrument to know it. Then only you can know. What are the instruments that we have? The instruments that we have is the body, the mind, the intellect. And these three instruments, the body, mind, and intellect, are not qualified to know consciousness. Why? Because it is the consciousness that is enlivening these three. So, in that way, what is consciousness cannot be known by these equipments, because these equipments are not designed to, just as are not designed to know consciousness, just as eyes are not designed to hear sound. Ears are not designed to register color and form. Mind is not designed to reason. Mind is designed to feel, to be impulsive. That is mind. You can't reason through the mind. It is like saying hearing through the eyes. How is it possible? Are you able to follow? So for something to happen, for you to do, knowing is an action, and that knowing becomes an object. To know that object, the subject needs a corresponding instrument. Unfortunately, the three instruments that we have, body, mind, and intellect, cannot know consciousness. But then, how do we say all are consciousness? We say all are consciousness based on the pramanam that it is said in the Shastras. If I follow the prescribed method, one day I will understand how everything is consciousness. If I follow the prescribed method, one day I would understand how everything is consciousness. But right now, what is consciousness? At one layer, there is one answer. At another layer, there is a different answer. Now, in this classroom, we start with level A and we make an effort to go to level 2. Why? Because level A satisfies the superficial thinker. The serious thinker will not get satisfied with level A. And I'm not talking about you, Anbanandan. I'm assuming that all of us are so interested in going so deep. I'm saying all this. Supposing you say, no, sir, we are not so interested in English. Why are you struggling yourself to do all this? No, this is Jnana Yoga. This is called Jnana Yoga. For a superficial thinker, a superficial thing is all right. Are you able to follow, sir? So, what is consciousness? Consciousness is that which lends sentiency to the matter equipments. Answer. And then we go deeper. When we ask what is consciousness, we are trying to objectify the consciousness, and if we have to objectify the consciousness, there has to be a subject having the relevant instrument to know that. There is the subject who doesn't have, there is the subject who doesn't have the relevant instrument to know that. Therefore, what is consciousness? We just get satisfied with the first layer of answer. And that first layer of answer really will not help you at all, because it doesn't satisfy you. Why? Because you are not asking for the, you are not asking at a superficial layer. You want to go slightly deeper, anticipating that Vedanta helps you from that angle also. Is it okay? Did I help you? Yeah. Knowledge requires three: the known, the knower, which is the subject, the object, and the relevant instrument. The relevant instrument. For subject may be there, but without the relevant instrument, you cannot know. You may be there, but you are having the tool that is used for the locomotive engine is different from the tool that is used for the wristwatch. So you need to have the relevant, the subject must be having the relevant instrument to know. Then the knowledge is complete knowledge. Vedanta gives the most beautiful answer by saying, you don't have any you don't have the relevant instrument by which it can be known. Therefore, you have to accept the definition that is given in the Shastra for consciousness. And what is the definition they are given? Consciousness is that which enlivens, which lends sentiency to the jada is consciousness. Matter plus spirit equals the formula. We have seen it any number of times. Human being equals matter plus spirit. Matter is the body, mind, intellect, equipments, not enlivened by consciousness. The moment consciousness comes and enlivens it, it wakes up and says, I know. What is it that I know? Even in the most dark room, you know that you are there, no? You know that you are there and you don't need any other proof for it is jnanam, self-evident. Self-evident. That is consciousness. So consciousness is self-evident. How consciousness is self-evident? I know that I am here. You know that you are sitting in front of the system. I know that I am sitting in front of the system. The fact that you are sitting in front of the system, I don't prove by seeing you. I am sitting in front of the system is not proven by all of you seeing me. I may close the camera, I may switch off the lights, I may be sitting in the darkest place where nobody, but then I know that I is consciousness. That I, which is self-evident, which doesn't lose awareness of itself, is is consciousness. 3 hours you can talk on this, sir. I'm not going to talk for 3 hours and all now. I have finished with this. But I'm giving you broad indicators by which you can think. What is consciousness? Consciousness is that which is self-evident. Self-evident means just as I know that I know that I do not know. I know that I am here. How do I know that I am here? Logical, don't make us go mad, sir. Already we are. Yeah, how do I know that I am here? I know that I am here. It is self-evident. It doesn't need any other. I will not say because I am seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, I am here. I will not say because I am feeling, I am here. I will not say because I am thinking, I am here. For when none of this is present in deep sleep, still the I-ness exists. Aham Brahmasmi. I am. It exists. I am that I am. Old Testament. It exists. So consciousness. What is consciousness? Consciousness is a self-proven, self-evident entity. For all other existence, the subject is the proof for the object existing. I saw you yesterday, sir. I didn't see you yesterday. Are you able to follow? For all other thing, proof comes from the external. But for you, the proof is you means not the body, mind, intellect, the self. So what is consciousness? The self-evident factor is the self-evident, the self-awareness factor is consciousness. What is consciousness? That which enlivens the matter to life is consciousness. That which is self-evident is consciousness. And this self-evident enlivening factor cannot be known through the body, mind, intellect instruments is consciousness. We define it at one angle. Are you able to follow? We define it in one way so beautifully, it looks like you have almost got it, and immediately it will come and say, no, don't take this definition. It is just one indicator, but this is not consciousness. This is how Jnana Yoga is practiced. Is it okay, sir? Yeah. With this, we conclude for today. And we continue with, what is the next one? We continue with Karma Yoga in the next session.